Okay, so I'm going to talk about Telesc.pe, which is an open source app that I've been working for about a year. And okay, so let's start with the beginning. So Telesc.pe is basically a Hacker News clone. So this is the homepage. And as a Hacker News clone, it's very similar to MadeWith. So you can post things, you can upvote them, you can comment on them. It also has a few more cool features like search, categories, and also internationalization, which was added pretty recently. So today I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the project and also talk about like where I want to take the project in the future. So first of all, a lot of people have asked me like why this project got started, and the reason is actually pretty simple. So I was a big fan of Hacker News, and I used to spend like probably way too much time on it. And one of my frustrations with the site was that it wasn't very design friendly. So you can probably see that in the design of the site itself, but it's not made for designers. And whenever I posted like design topics, like hey, there's a new font, or hey, what do you think of Helvetica versus Comic Sans, or stuff like this, nobody cared. So I wanted to create a Hacker News for designers. And so this was my first ever design, and at the time I called it the grid. And since I figured if I'm going to create that thing, I might as well make it open source so other people can also enjoy it and contribute. So this is what became Telesc.pe. You can see it has some similarities between it still has that kind of grid design that comes from the name of the first version. But since it was a Meteor app, I stayed in the Meteor theme and called it Telesc.pe. And I ended up using Telesc.pe to build Sidebar. So Sidebar is basically the Hacker News for designers that I originally wanted to build, except that the concept changed a little bit. So you can't really comment or upvote on stuff, but instead it's like a daily mailing list of the 5 best design links contributed by a community of users. So Sidebar is actually doing pretty well, and so what I'm doing is every time I need a new feature for Sidebar, I implement it first in Telesc.pe, so both projects can evolve in parallel. And so here are some stats about Telesc.pe. So there's a bunch of stars on GitHub. Lots of people have forked it. Anybody here who has forked it or cloned it to play with it? Yeah, a few people there. Cool, yeah. So yeah, and there were quite a few people who tried the demo, so almost 2,000 demo accounts, which is pretty cool. Mostly to type lorem ipsum and dumb stuff, but still. So this is actually like the main reason I'm doing this presentation tonight is that I discovered that there's actually quite a few people who are already using Telesc.pe for their own communities. So for example, there's one called creator.io. Has anybody heard of that? Yeah? Yeah, a few people. So this one is a community about Meteor itself. So it's basically like the Google Groups group, but made with Telesc.pe. And so it's like a Meteor app. There's a Hack.bio, which is a Telesc.pe for biology. There's Lighthouse, which is pretty interesting. It's a community about building communities. So it's very meta.
I think we need to go deeper.
Yeah. Userium is a community about usability reviews. So you can post your site and the community will give you some feedback. And so I also wanted to share a few lessons that I learned working on this app and also on open source app in general. And one thing I'm slowly realizing is that easy is more effective than powerful. And what I mean by that is if you ask people what they want in an app, they'll say, oh, it needs an API, it needs to be flexible, it needs to do this and that. But what actually gets people to to be engaged with your app is much simpler things like being able to deploy it and try it out very simply. So for that, now there's Meteor, which lets you just deploy it in one click, basically. Good default, so having a nice template, a nice skin, and easy customization. So just being able to change the color, the logo, without having to dig in the code is very important, I think. I also learned about the open source 80-20 principle. So basically, you will end up doing 80% of the work, and then the contributors might help you with the last 20%, but don't think that you're going to open the GitHub repo and then you're going to have the pull request coming in and doing all the work for you. That doesn't happen. And finally, I'm also starting to consider my open source project as a product, as a startup. So that means blogging about it, having an email list, and taking care of the community. Because it's great if the community will happen organically, but you also have to encourage it. So I'm out of time, but I'm just going to talk really, really quickly about the next steps. So the things I want to do in the future: make the whole experience smoother, so make the site a little bit less buggy and really take advantage of all the cool stuff in Meteor. Make it even easier to customize, so improve settings, maybe work on themes. And I also have lots of weird experimental features that if you're interested, you can come talk to me about after. So that's it. If you are interested, go check out the app. If you'd like to contribute, that would be really great. I hope that this can become like the WordPress of community apps one day. So we'll see if we can make that come true together. Thanks. Any questions? Yeah.
Why did you choose Meteor to implement this?
So why did I choose Meteor? So what happened is that originally I decided that I was definitely not going to code this app. So I tried to find a contractor or a partner to help me with that, and I found a guy who was a Node developer, and we started building this app. But at that time, my friend Sean, who's maybe in the room somewhere, told me about Meteor. So the guy I was working with decided to switch to Meteor, basically. And then he, after 1 week, he got busy with other more serious projects, and he kind of dropped off the face of the earth. So I was stuck with this weird new framework, with not much documentation and a very small community, but I decided to push through and keep at it. So it was kind of random. Okay, well, so thank you.